Welcome to the Speak with People podcast, where we believe that healthy communication is the key to unlocking your leadership potential. We are the go-to resource for leaders looking to greatly improve their communication skills, whether it's one-on-one interactions, team settings, public speaking, or your digital communication. By improving these skills, leaders can create stronger connections and drive positive change within their organization. Each and every episode, we sit down with leaders from various fields, just like you're grabbing a cup of coffee with them. We dive into real, practical conversations. Our goal is to help you transform your communication skills so you can lead more effectively, build stronger relationships, and make a lasting impact. So grab your favorite drink, settle in, and let's learn together. Well, how do you turn your speaking passion into a paying career? How do you take that desire to solve a problem that maybe your audience is facing and take it to a regional conference or a regional team meeting? And then how could you actually get paid to do it? And then once you've been getting paid to do it, how could you actually do this for a living and support yourself and make a good living at it? Well, today I am so excited because we have an incredible guest on the Speak with People podcast. I have followed her forever. I have been listening through all of her podcast episodes. This book, if you thumb through my version of it, it is highlighted and pages and the resources I have. She has been just an incredible source of wisdom. She's helped coach so many leaders. I'm just honored to have Jane Atkinson on the podcast. Thank you so much for being here. I cannot wait to have this conversation with you.
That is just the most lovely introduction. Thank you so much. I am honored to be on your show.
Well, I find as a podcast host, I'm hoping I will be joining you as an author this year. My first book will be out, but
Yay.
When people are nice, they'll say, I listen to the podcast but when they actually like something, share something, buy something, boy, it really means the world.
Yes, it really does. Skin in the game is the proof, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Well, why don't, before we hop into this conversation, you just kind of share with our listeners a little bit about who you are, what's your journey, what's kind of gotten you to this place?
Well, I have been in the speaking business for over 30 years.
Wow.
I don't actually know the number. I just stopped at 30 counting. First as an agent for speakers, I was a representative and sold speakers into conferences for the first, say, 15 years. And I really would go in and help somebody double their business year after year. And so a lot of people took notice of me in the industry and said, "Ooh, I want to know how you did that." And so I finally hung out my shingle as a coach. I wrote my first version of The Wealthy Speaker. It's called The Wealthy Speaker, no numbers after it. Since then, there has been the Wealthy Speaker 2.0 and the Wealthy Speaker 3.0, which is a post-COVID version. And went on to write 4 or 5 other books inside the speaking industry as well, and have been a coach for speakers for over 20 years. We've had some massive success stories, people you've read about in the book who have gone from 0 to $1 million or multiple millions in their revenue. And when you think about it, the day I got into the industry, I was like, ooh, this is so interesting. There are people out here getting paid ridiculous sums of money to talk. And, if you were like me, when you were a little kid, on your report card every year, it said, talks too much. And here we are all getting paid for this. So I think it's kind of cool. There's a lot of your listeners perhaps who have said, maybe they've hired speakers in their jobs and they've thought, I should think about doing that. So I think it's an amazing industry full of really incredibly smart and talented people.
Boy, I love that. I recently came across a thinker who his whole philosophy is kind of death to the speaker. We no longer need one person on the stage. We got to get everybody around tables and, break it up. And yeah, I think that's great. There's great communication, great leadership that can happen, great learning. But I know in my life, I can pinpoint the day in 1996, January 5th. I'm at Cobo Hall in downtown Detroit, and a very young Dr. John Maxwell, he wasn't a doctor
Mm,
at that point, is on the stage. And I thought, oh my
yeah.
goodness. Like, I mean, I still can go back to that day and how transformative it was. It was just amazing.
Yeah. For me, it was Les Brown, and I'll tell you more about that later.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah.
Well, let's just hop right in. So, for so many speakers who build successful careers,
Mhm.
uh, for our listeners who are going, okay, it's time. I got to stop saying next year I'll do something. What's the biggest mistake new speakers make when they're starting to launch their business, or they're starting to step into this?
Well, we use this chocolate chip cookie analogy. My coach, Lisa Larder, gave this to me, where um, let's say you wanted to bake a batch of chocolate chip cookies. You would go onto the internet and you would search best chocolate chip cookie recipe, and then you would follow that recipe from beginning to end. Well, I think what a lot of people who want to become speakers do is they go out and find 10 recipes and they start taking pieces. And
Uh,
so, my advice is to find a formula that you like and then follow the formula through, because that will give you the best results. You want a formula that's been proven, that people have used over and over again to get results. And you want to just kind of follow it. And of course, there's customization along the way, because there are some things that one person will do that another person will not. But there's a lot of foundational principles that pretty much work in business.
wow, I love that. I can remember being yelled at as a young 20-something-year-old by my doctor who I didn't finish my antibiotic. And he's like,
Prescription,
yeah,
yes.
you got to work it through. And I think about,
Yeah,
how many leaders I've coached who, they start working the plan, but then they don't get the results that they hope. And then they just, you know,
that's like dropping off at day 10 on a 14-day prescription. Yes.
I love that. One of the things that it just kind of I was immediately drawn to in your book was just all of the bonus downloads and the QR codes. I'm a resource junkie, so to be
Yes.
able to go and access all of those, that was I was
Mhm.
like, wow, this is so wealthy. I mean, you're giving us these incredible tools to be able to do it.
Yeah, well, we've designed a lot of worksheets. We use a lot of these tools inside of our school. Our students are using them daily, and we want it to be able to, over 30 years, you have, kind of designed a lot of content, and we want to share it with people. And I think that QR code idea is so genius, because it serves the speaker as well, because now I have a name, a way. I sell all my books through Amazon, and now I have a way to capture your name and email address, which I think smart authors are using that technique a lot.
Yeah. What I loved about it, I can't remember. I was on a flight and I was starting to read through it, and I was like, "Oh, okay. Do I wait till I land?" But I'm going to some of the resources, and one of the biggest mistakes I've made. I've been speaking, for a long, long time, but only really in the last couple of years, full time. So it's always kind of a side thing. You
Mhm.
know, public schools. Lots of different things. And
Yeah.
what it really, so many of those resources forced me to do in 22, 23, when I said, okay, I'm going to go full time, I wanted to speak to everyone. And one of the things
Yes.
that it really helped me do is really focus in. Oh, those
Yeah.
resources were
Yeah.
incredible.
Do you want to boil the ocean, or you want to try to take it down into a manageable size? And that's exactly what we do. I think the entire book is about focus.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When you're coaching someone and they have lots of zeal and
Mhm.
they're, because I can remember, me telling people, yes, if you want me in the church setting, I can do this. If you want me in the school setting, I can do this. You want me in the corporate setting. And, you
Yes.
probably work with some overzealous
We
speakers.
call it picking a lane,
Mm,
and sometimes we can mash together a lane that will satisfy this person's need to do more than one thing. But think about your business model like an umbrella, And at the top of the umbrella, you really want kind of one word or idea. So, and the idea is going to come back to the problem that you want to solve.
Mm.
So, let's say that you are really, really good at communications and you want to kind of apply it to leadership. You would put leadership communications at the top of your umbrella. The body of the umbrella on the inside would be the names of the presentations that you could potentially deliver. And obviously, it's not going to contain something that is completely unrelated. Let's say presentation skills, that may not be there. Although leadership communication, I could actually draw a path
Sure.
to presentation skills, but you see what I'm talking
Yep.
about. So you would have the lists of the speeches that you had, and we kind of talk about maybe having 2 or 3 speeches max, not having 10 or 15. And then what would fall off the umbrella like raindrops underneath, we would list out your profit centers for each of the areas,
Oh,
because we
wow.
don't think about keynote speaking is just one way that you're going to deliver this message. You might be a consultant or a coach. You might have books that you want to sell. You might have an online course. There are so many revenue streams that you could have. So what's perfect though, if you do decide to write a book, is that you want to look back at leadership communication. That is your focus. That's the holy grail that you keep coming back to, so that everything in your business makes sense towards solving one problem. If you
Wow.
try to solve too many problems, you're going to have 3 umbrellas, and you're going to find that it's really difficult to even build a website to support that. So picking a lane is the answer.
Boy, I love that, and it's probably a blast for you because you could probably see it coming with some of the speakers you coach, and they're going,
Yes,
"But
and
wait, I want to do wait."
I love a lot of energy, and a lot of these people come out of, EO and different places where they actually have a lot of savvy and entrepreneurial skills. And so I never ever will put any kind of limits on them, because if they know how to run a business, I'm just showing them how to customize all what they know for this business, and then
Mm.
they can get there faster. So having that energy, we just funnel it maybe differently. We
Right.
don't funnel it into 6 different topics.
Right. Well, and that's what's amazing about having a coach like yourself, or somebody, I know for years I just pushed against, having a coach, but then you realize, wait a minute, that coach can help me kind of miss so many landmines, so much pain. You still have to
Yeah,
experience some of that, but the
time
way
and
that you're
money.
able to help walk somebody through.
Time and money. Yeah, I mean, there are resources that you just don't wanna waste a year trying to flounder around and do it yourself. I think it's really helpful to have a formula and to have somebody customize it just for you based on what they know about you.
Yeah, I love that. So walk us through. You have a system that you talk about throughout the book, and you've kind of touched on it a little bit, but we'll kind of walk us through just because that system's so tremendously helpful. And
Actually, I'll share with you our formula. So we talked about the chocolate chip cookie idea. This is our recipe. So it's called whoopsie. It's called Ready Aim Fire. I think I went about that backwards. In the ready stage, the ready stage is all about clarity. So we're getting crystal clear on what we're selling. We pick a lane. We're getting crystal clear on what we're selling. We develop what we call a strong promise statement. That's a marketing piece. We decide who is going to be the audience, and we set our fees. So, really, Ready gives us a ton of clarity. Then we move into AIM. And in the AIM stage, it's all about marketing. And the best form of marketing is a really great speech. I know we'll talk about that a little bit more. So we do speech, we do your website, and if needed, demo video in this part of the process. And we make sure that we have a really focused marketing based on what we've decided and ready. And then, and only then, we move into launch, which is when we roll it out to our target audience. And I think a lot of people, myself included, have done this in a reverse order. We've gone out to launch, we've started to try to talk to clients, and then realized, hey, wait a second, I actually am lacking clarity around this, and you have to circle back. So ready, aim, launch is the sequence, and it is in that order for a very distinct purpose.
We years ago I worked for an organization, and our internal joke was ready, fire, aim was
Yeah.
our sequence. And as you said that, I was just thinking about it because I just
Yep.
remembered it was about 2 months ago, 3 months ago, I was doing a pitch, over a Teams, and somebody asked a question, and I went, "Oh, should have thought of that.
Yeah.
Should have had that clarity." I
Ready,
love
fire,
that.
aim. Yep.
Walk us through a strong promise statement. What an incredible, I mean, that just
Yeah.
kind of grabs you right off the.
So there was a copywriter back in the day called Bob Bly. And this was way back when we used to have these, remember the really, really long internet page that, the sell wasn't until you scrolled down 15 pages. So the big promise was what he called it at the top of the page, had to draw you in. And so the goal of that promise is for an organization, whether it be an association or a corporation, to lean in and say, yes, we need that. So it's a short and sweet statement that really tells how you are going to solve a problem for them. And so my promise, I think on the homepage of my website at Speaker Launcher is something like, if you want to make money as a speaker, I'm your person, kind of thing. If speaking and getting paid to speak is your thing, then, continue on. And we want to make sure we use interesting language. So we've had promises that have included the word catapult. If you want to catapult your speaking business, this is the place for you. You want to, and so that word gives you like a visual
Yep.
of going places. And so think about how you can first set out some words that say what it is. So we will take clear over clever. Okay.
Mm.
First, you need to say what it is. Then you can go back and zhuzh it up. You can alternate some words and try to, and that's something that we're helping people do that all the time.
Boy, I love that. Clear over clever. I mean, as a wannabe creative person,
Yeah.
I love the clever, but at the end of the day, the human brain
Sometimes
just
people
gets,
don't get it.
yeah,
Sometimes it goes right over their head.
yep,
Like, I really don't know what you're talking about here. And if you have to explain to me, if I'm sitting in the top above the fold piece of your website, and then you have to explain to me more because your words weren't clear enough, then you need to go back to the drawing board on your promise.
wow. When
Yeah.
you walk people through focusing on your target audience, how focused do you get? I mean, is it like a room full of orthopedic doctors, or do you go
Well,
even further?
I've
Dr. Sally,
seen
she's
people I've seen people in on the coaching side of things. I've seen people go really, really specific in their coaching. Like, I'm going to help practicing physicians lose weight. Like, that is really, really specific. So they go narrow. I would go in speaking, physicians could be a target audience for you, but you might even go one step broader and say healthcare. My topic, of leadership communication, if we stay on that path, has a lot of benefits in healthcare. So let me have healthcare be one of my target audiences. Now, all that gives you is some focus when you're doing your outbound marketing. who comes to you could be anybody,
Yep.
could be financial planners, could
Yep.
be, probably you're not going to get uh, people who have no interested in leader communication, but say project managers might, and you might do go and do one project manager audience and
Yep.
realize, oh, actually they really love me. So what we are doing in the first year is we're kind of exploring, and then we're finding groups that we really really love, and we're doubling down on the outbound marketing towards them. Sometimes you'll go and do a state association and you realize, oh, there's 49 more of these people that, groups that I could speak to. And
Yep.
so it's, you find something that works and then you double down.
Wow. I love that. So in the beginning, in the ready category, you kind of walk people through setting their fees. So,
Mhm.
um, how does somebody who's never gotten paid before, or maybe they're at a place where, they've gotten a little bit here and there, but now they're like, okay, what is this worth?
We've had people come into the market at say $1,500. In the book, this is such an arbitrary number, but
Yep.
in the book we say 1,500 and you're in the game. Okay. I don't know why 500, but it could be 500, but you're in the game, you're getting paid. Okay. But I've also had people who have come out of, say, a big CEO position who have started at $10,000. They've
Mm.
had lots of stage time, and now we're just focusing their message on this one outcome. And they feel confident enough to command that. Now, people who have been speaking for a while, um, what we're looking for in order to raise the fee might be, well, clients kept telling me I should be charging more. If your client's telling you you should be charging more, you should be charging more. You're sharing the stages with other speakers who are getting paid more. That might be a time to raise your fee. You've released a new book or had a big accomplishment. That might be a time to raise your fee. And also if your calendar is full.
Mm.
So if you want 5 speeches a month and you're booking 5 speeches a month, okay, time to bump the fee up a little bit.
Yeah. Ooh, that's so good. I love that. So then the aim part, getting this, kind of an epic speech, your keynote, your presentation, what it is. I have found even in my own life, sometimes I watch these great stories about athletes practicing all the time. I, watched all of this kind of stuff. What do you think when it comes to speakers? Do you think the average speaker is practicing their speech multiple times a week? Should they be? How do they go about that? Kind of speak into that.
You know, the way to develop a really strong presentation is preparation.
Mm.
But we don't want to rehearse. We want to rehearse, but we don't want to over rehearse or feel like we're in our head when there's this term called in the bones that we use in coaching. You want to just get a story, and I would really work on your opening story, your closing story, and maybe a couple of things in the middle. But what you want to do is you want to rehearse it so that it's in your bones,
Mm.
and that way, when you go, you can actually be present with your audience and not be thinking, where do I go next? Some people use PowerPoint, they might have only 5 slides, but the 5 slides just show them where to go next. It's just
Yep.
one word and a beautiful image on a screen. That might be a reason to do that if you think you might be forgetful. But for the most part, the real tip I would probably give you about speaking is to be aware of your stories versus teaching ratio.
Ooh.
Your stories versus teaching. Most people lean heavily into teaching because that is kind of like a default position, I think, for most of us, is just, you know, and people what really they hang on to, I think somebody in my book called the mental coat pegs, they hang on to stories that they won't remember the three keys that you gave to leadership communication, but they will remember that story that you told about being on, at the beach with your kid that day, and there was some relevant point to it that they took hold of, and they'll remember that. There are great speakers I have seen that I have remembered what they said 20 years later, and I have
Wow.
a really bad memory. So that is something when you can remember pieces of. There was a speaker who was very impactful who was a prisoner of war, and he talked about how in their little 4x4 cells they would communicate with each other, these American POWs, and they would communicate in Morse code. And he was rapping. There was a piano on the stage next to him, and I can remember him tapping on the piano out the things that they were communicating with each other. I can still hear that. That was
Wow.
30 plus years ago, and I can
Wow.
still hear the tapping. Captain Jerry Coffey was his name. He lived in Hawaii. And that is a memorable presentation. And so in that case, it wasn't the words, it was the actual thing that he did, but it had such
Oof.
impact. Yeah, but the
Wow.
story, so I was right there in that 4x4 cell with him, and he's tapping out the Morse code, "Are you okay?" or whatever it might have been. And oh, there wasn't a dry eye in the house, and oh, it was something else.
Whew. Wow. Yeah, absolutely. I love that. So talk to us for a second about there's different venues. You know, not every speaking engagement is a keynote in front of a few hundred people with a stage
Yes.
and bright lights. I find myself in back rooms of restaurants and hotel, the side hotel rooms,
Yeah.
where there's more training presentations. There's virtual,
Yes.
walk us through, is it a different, should you only focus on one? Is it okay to offer a couple of those? What are some of your thoughts
Oh,
on that?
well, sure. Lots of people will do a lot of what we call concurrent sessions at
Mm,
conferences. So you go to a big conference and they have a keynote speaker in the morning, maybe at lunch, maybe in the afternoon as well. They might have three different keynotes over the course, and that's the full room. That might be 1,000 people or 5,000 people, depending on how big the conference. And that would we would call that the show. You're in front of it, and some people don't ever want to get to the show, but other people really do. And so your marketing, if I come onto your website, you should have some kind of bigger stages so that I'll know you're show capable.
mm,
Okay. So, on your way there, though, you might get booked for a 90-minute breakout session, which is going to be one of the concurrents that go on. And they love you so much that they ask you to do the keynote the following year. So, your concurrents and your workshopy type things are your path to
oof.
the keynotes. And so, like I said, everybody has their sweet spot and they figure out where they really belong. But lots of us have done a 3-hour keynote to in order to get onto the big stages for sorry, a 3-hour workshop. I think I said
Yes.
keynote. A 3-hour workshop on the way to getting the big keynote.
Yeah. Last year, was it last year? Last year, I did a conference for Huntington Bank. They were doing a regional gathering, and they did it at a Top Golf. I don't know if you have Top Golf
Yeah,
where you're
I
at. Yeah.
love Top Golf.
So yeah, I was the last session before they got to golf. So always the
Oh,
riot,
that's
being
tough.
the last.
Yeah. So they have meeting rooms there, which is genius because what
Yeah.
a smart venue for that. Um, One of my speakers, Vince Pacenti, who was an Olympic athlete, when I was his agent, I booked him into, I think it was 6 engagements that were direct selling engagements, and each audience was 15,000 people or more. And being able to grab hold and keep the people way back in the nosebleed sections, that is a very particular set of skills.
Wow.
Liam,
Wow.
Liam Neeson. That is something that not everybody could do. So you don't want to start there.
Yeah.
That's the Olympics. If the big keynote with 5,000 people is the show, this is the Olympics.
Yep.
And it was incredible watching my speaker do it with such style that people lined up for 3 hours to talk to him afterwards. It was the most insane thing that I've ever seen, but it was quite an experience, and that is something that not every professional speaker will get to do, but it's
Yes.
pretty cool when it happens.
Oh, I love that. I tell speakers all the time, if you really want to see where you're at skill level and you need to be humbled a little bit. I did
Hmm.
middle school and high school assemblies for
Oh,
years. Uh, so there
that
is
is
nothing
very
like
humbling, and that is a very tricky audience, and you really need to have you really need to know what you're doing.
yeah, going back to what you talked about with the story ratio to teaching ratio. My story
Yes.
ratio was very high because I wasn't
Yes.
juggling. I didn't have a skateboard. Like I wasn't doing magic. I had to just grab them with a story.
Yes. There you go. That was good. That was good grounds for training.
Yes. Uh, could you give us a few nuggets so event managers, what you learned over the years, if they're getting, cold called or cold prospected, they haven't heard of the speaker before, is there any way for people to stand out or to make sure, hey, when you roll out your marketing stuff, you got to make sure these things pop.
Well, you really need to figure out what your differentiator is.
Mm.
I have some people who have buried the lead. Um, I have a client, Robin Hatcher, who is a former soap opera actress and writer for soap operas. And for the first part of her speaking career, she never mentioned of it. She never talked about it. And now she has a program called Drama Detox. And she actually frames it all out of how these workplace situations could be similar to soap opera writing. And not everybody watches soap operas, but everybody knows that there's like a certain cool factor to that. It's very interesting. And what are the stories about that? And walking on set, and this is happening, and this is happening. And so she had to figure out what was her differentiator and pull it out front. So
Mm.
if you're getting 50 emails from speakers a day, and they're saying things like leadership communication, but then you see soap opera writer, you're like, oh, okay, let me just look a little longer at this. You're going
Yep.
to capture attention. So figure out what your differentiator is. Most people probably send too long of an email, and I would keep it really short and sweet with one question. And really allow that. If you try to sell all of your programs or 5 different things, you probably won't have the outcome. But think about, what is your strongest thing? What are people in those industries really benefiting from the most? And maybe you use a line or two from a testimonial where someone said, uh, with their leadership communication program, our hospital, adopted this idea and everything changed. Whatever it might be. You want something that kind of gives them some social proof.
Oh, I love that. That's absolutely huge. Uh, Last question. I'll ask you some rapid fire questions. We'll wrap it up. But
Okay.
as you're looking at, as the speakers kind of, okay, they're getting momentum, things are going, and they want to kind of get repeat bookings. And then, as they're balancing, okay, I got a busy season, but after this season, it's not going to be very busy unless I do some things during this season. What are those? Again, I love your word differentiator. What are those things that like speakers just have to keep in mind as always looking ahead?
Well, that's the thing. This is a numbers business. And so think of it like a blank farmer's field. you can't just plant the seeds once and then forget about it.
Ooh.
You've got it every season. You've got to plant more seeds. And so I had a client named Kendra Hall who became quite famous, who went from zero to multiple millions. And she started by sending 300 emails, and she went and played all the dates that she booked from those emails, and then realized, oh, I need to send 300 more. And
Mm.
so now, today, fast forward 10, 15 years, her operation would just be constantly planting seeds. So having something that keeps your name top of mind, front and center, is really helpful. And that's probably what we see, people getting frustrated that they're not getting the results. We'll look at their numbers. Oh, how many emails did you send? Well, just one.
Uh,
Okay. Well, we need to do a follow-up email and another one after that. And after that, maybe some more. So just know that it's a process. And sometimes you do need to trust the process. Is starting any business, and sorry to say this, but starting any business takes 3 years, and the whole seed planting process, you'll start to see harvest in year one, but you may not get to your numbers until you've really done the work and you're in year three.
mm. I, so Speak with People is 2.5 years old. I was thinking I was just going to do public speaking coaching because I was like, I'm kind of done speaking on stages at student events and those kind of
Yeah.
things. Had coffee one day with a gentleman who said, "Hey, I'm a wholesaler." I didn't know what that was. He said, my client is a bank. I heard you speak. Could you put together a client communication skills training for these
Oh,
bankers?" And I was like, "Yeah, I love that." So that one
nice.
virtual training turned into hundreds. And
See?
now, PNC, Fifth Third, Truist Wealth, all these banks now I've
Awesome.
spoke for. Just what you said, like it's that continual process. But I never thought I didn't wake up one day and went, I want to talk to bankers. It just, the doors
Well,
were opened.
it just goes to show that there is no better form of marketing than a great presentation, because that one presentation is at the center of all of this spin-off. And so if you're not getting two or three spin-off from every engagement, then you have to go back and revisit the presentation skills and see, oh, okay, I was too whatever heavy in this one, and that's why I didn't get quite as many spin.
2 to 3. Yeah, that's been the challenge. Your book has
That's on
challenged
app.
me. It's ignited so many. I mean, just incredible.
That's great.
Let me
I
ask you a
love it.
couple rapid fire questions. We're building an
Sure.
online database for our listeners. They
Okay.
want to be spurred on to new ideas, new podcasts, all of that kind of stuff. This is
Okay.
probably unfair to ask you because of your industry and what you do, but do you have a favorite speaker? Every time you listen to them, you just,
Well,
ooh, they fill you up.
so back in the day, Les Brown was my guy, and I watched his Live Your Dreams speech. I don't know if you can Google that and find it today, but to me, I was in my early 20s, and it had massive impact. It said, make your car your library on wheels and be constantly learning. That didn't dawn on me when I was
Mm,
20, 25 years old. I hadn't read a book since college. And so that changed everything for me. So I have a fondness in my heart for Les Brown because of that. His speeches have evolved and changed over the years, but that Live Your Dream speech meant so much to me.
mm. I love that. If you're a podcast listener, not everyone is, but if you are, do you have either a guilty pleasure or a development one that you just keep going back to and you would highly recommend?
Well, I would be remiss if I didn't say my own podcast, the Wealthy
Absolutely.
Speaker Podcast. I actually do listen to it every once in a while, but I try not to, because you know how we are listening to ourselves. Um, the second one that kind of inspires me, Brooke Castillo has one called the Life Coach School. And I am very choosy about which ones I listen to, but every once in a while I get really inspired. And her thing is really all about mindset.
Mm,
And I will say that mindset is probably 80 to 90% of the whole speaking industry. We have a big chunk of our school. I got certified by Brooke Castillo to include mindset in the work that we do here at the school, because it's such a game changer for our clients to really lock down their mindset. So I would maybe be choosy about which ones you listen to, but Brooke Castillo's life coach school.
I love it. And then last one, is there a book that boy, every leader, you have to read this book?
Yes. And thank you for pitching The Wealthy Speaker.
Of course.
I actually love The Gap and the Gain by someone who was my mentor for over a decade, Dan Sullivan and Ben Hardy. And it talks about, it's really a mindset book about focusing on measuring yourself from where you've come from rather than where you want to be. If you're always measuring based on your goal out there, then you're always going to feel like it's not enough, it's less than, there's always more, and you're always going to feel like you're behind. And so what we want to do is we want to look behind us from where we've come and how much we want to be really accumulating wins along the way. And that book is just terrific for that, really getting you into the right mindset. The subtitle is The High Achiever's Guide to Happiness, Confidence, and Success.
Wow. Wow. That's fantastic. We'll put that on the
Okay.
document. Jane, this was brilliant. I mean, I could ask you literally 15 more questions. I could probably keep you 3 hours, but I
I
won't.
really enjoyed it. Thank
Well,
you.
thank you. Where's the best place? Because we'll link all of this. We have a Facebook group of 1,200 or so leaders. We're going to, tell everybody we know about.
Yeah.
Where's the best place to find you?
Go to speakerlauncher.com. That is our best place. And we link to our school and everything from my private coaching from that. All of the books, if you just search Jane Atkinson out on Amazon, you'll see that I've written some on a lot of different topics within the speaking industry.
Boy, just absolutely incredible. This was amazing. I mean, even for me, sorry to sound all, like a deep fan for a second, but your
Ah,
work has been huge for me. So I highly recommend your book and your podcast.
thank
We'll
you.
link to all of that. Thank you so much. Know you're literally changing lives, helping transform
Ah,
people all over the place. So really appreciate it.
thank you. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you for listening to the Speak with People podcast, where we believe that healthy communication is the key to unlocking your leadership potential. Thank you for leaving a review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. And thank you for every like and every comment. Every single time you cut and copy a link and send it to a coworker or a friend, it absolutely means the world, and it helps each other transform our communication skills. Lastly, don't forget about a great resource that's available to you: our communication skills library. At the end of every episode, we ask each guest their favorite speaker, their favorite podcast, their favorite book, and we've compiled all of those resources together to give you an amazing library to continue your growth and development. Thank you again for being a listener and for being a part of the Speak with People community.